from being in the military. But you have like serious concerns, and I don't know how many other facilities that we have like that. There are just dormant. I think there's one in Councilor Huff's district as well, but it's dormant, and sadly, it attracts crime. I think both of our parks have had incidents where somebody was murdered, at the park. So are there any plans on addressing those locations, whether, we're trying to renovate, sell to a different nonprofit, or just completely demolish?
So there are two, and you are exactly correct. One is Belvedere, and the other is Promise King in Councilor Huff's area. And Belvedere, we've had a couple of different entities reach out about purchasing, I believe, but it's been years. And for one reason or the other, it did not pan out. It did not go through. But it would be one that we would sell. It's going to be an extreme expense because of the damage to the building, because I've been with the city 22 years, and it only operated for 1 or 2 years when I started in the early 2000s. The city did not operate it. It was operated by a church. And after they left, it has not been operable because we didn't have the manpower or the operation to be able to do so. Promise King is even further. Promise King, I don't even know that it has ever operated in my 22 years that I've been with the city. And it needs to be demoed. That would be our recommendation for it, because it's so far past being able to be renovated. And Belvedere, I'm not a contractor, I don't know exactly, but it's in really bad condition. Not to the outward appearance, but if you go inside, it's got a lot of water damage and age, just what you would find in a building that's set up that long.
I'm not sure if it would be beneficial for us to actually go in and see the level of damage, because we have had several people who have asked, just like Jerome Bryant, who has the kickball, and they're doing some other sports, flag football, and they were talking about using a different location besides Shirley B, because we're running out of practice locations, because we have a lot of kids in youth sports, and it's just getting larger and larger. So is it a possibility for us to kind of go in the facility and see exactly maybe an estimate of what it would take to get Belvedere back up and running, or possibly what it would cost a nonprofit to
a nonprofit is who looked at Belvedere and decided it was not advisable or in their favor to do so. They're one of the ones who walked away and said it was not going to be something they could do.
Yeah. I thought Mr. Pruitt was coming up. I was looking.
Well, let me just say that I believe it's beyond repair, and I think it's been recommended through that we demo it. But certainly, I don't have a problem with someone going in, to look at it if someone wants to look at it, if they think they can do some good.
Absolutely, and our facilities maintenance team, they have reviewed that. They've looked at that, and I think they have told us, based on the condition of it, that it is, it would take a lot to repair that. I think even just the last couple of years or so, we did have a nonprofit who was interested in going in, but because of the condition, it was going to be really, it was not going to be advantageous for them, because they would have had to put money, that amount of money, and whatever that was going to be, and we don't know exactly how much, but it was going to be a good cost to bring it back. It really is in poor structural condition.
Yeah.
So what would be, I guess, the process to demo the area, and also the baseball area? You got a lot of bad stuff going on in that baseball area.
Yeah.
In one of that building, it's not boarded up, so you get a lot of things going on that should not be going, illicit things going on.
That's right.
Well,
that building and the restroom both need to be
yes,
demoed,
ma'am.
because that's where we had the issue, I think, in that restroom.
And I think we probably would have had them on the demolition list by now, but we had the dollars that we had we use them with other priorities in residential and areas and so forth. But I think what I recall is that it was recommended we demo it and sell it,
That's right.
you know, and so
So
it's something
sell-
we can come back to.
Sell the
with.
land.
Yeah.
Sell the
Yes.
land.
Because, you know, it could be residential or, I don't know, but that's the recommendation.
Yeah, and when we had that all hands on deck at, Miss Kitty's hair salon, that was one of the things, I think the most loudest, concern was
That's
the
right.
safety, in that area, and it has, you know, it calms down and then it just get worse. But we have had operations in the area and actually made a few arrests, but it's not getting any better, in that area. So that was one of the questions that one of the citizens had was about Belvedere Park, and, you know, can we come up with a timeline for, you know, actually addressing and making that area not just safe, you know, safer, but vibrant, because right now it's not.
We can
At
certainly
all.
move forward in putting it on the list for demo, and then, of course, the eventual sale.
Thank you, thank you. One more question, well, a couple more questions to Director Broder. First of all, can you send this to us electronically?
Absolutely.
One of the things I would like to see, because I know that we're gonna have some challenges getting these lifeguards. We're already challenged with lifeguards, and sadly, I know only because my daughter was a lifeguard and she worked many, many hours over the summer, being a lifeguard. But we really need to look at moving that pay for our lifeguards up the scale, because we're losing our lifeguards from CCG going everywhere else. A lot of, and it's not like they're poaching our kids or anything, somewhat, but they're going to Fort Benning, they're going to all other locations, and I know for a fact we're losing our lifeguards. And in reference to the community schools issue, that $20 CSU is paying for the part-time to work those positions, at those schools, they're starting at $20 an hour.
And part of
for-
their program has lost funding, I just learned yesterday. And so the urgency and the concern by our staff is the potential, which again is fabulous, that we'll actually get more schools back for us to operate, but what do we do? So we have been discussing internally, like, what does that look like and how can we manage that? Because we don't want to tell anybody no. We don't want to turn away a mother or a child that can't be part of our program, but we just got to figure out what's the solution.
Yeah, and I think the counselor is correct, and I think we're gonna have to, based on the market for positions like lifeguards and other positions, that's why we came last week with the Civic Center. You can't pay people $9 an hour and think they're gonna show up, and the mayor is paying his summer youth workers $14 an hour. We gotta look at it on a case by case, but we gotta be willing gotta be flexible. And so I agree with the council. We cannot think we're gonna complete these new pools and splash pads and can't hire lifeguards, because you can't open if you don't have lifeguards. So I think we gotta be flexible.
Yeah, and then also, and that's why I asked for this, because one of the things I'm gonna ask, Director Alexander is to do a mock-up of how much it would cost, to increase the pay for the lifeguards, and then also those part-time positions. And it's good now that we actually have the numbers of which ones are making under that threshold.
Yes, ma'am.
So this will be helpful with, going forward. So, and I know you probably don't have this information off the top of your head, but in reference to the aquatic center, if you could bring what's the revenue versus the cost. So what are we bringing in versus what are we putting out.
I
You
do not know the answer, but I will get you the answer.
Yeah.
I just don't know it off the top of my head.
So I think that'll be good as well to see. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that it, Mr. Mayor?
Counselor Davis? No, we've got quite a few others, counselors.
Okay.
Okay, Director Browder, two questions for you. One, so we've started on the Lake Oliver Marina bathrooms, right?
My understanding, that's the project. Please understand, we assist, but we don't handle the contractors or the funding or any of that. Public Works is working on getting a vendor to bid out to do the bathrooms, because we have more than just Lake Oliver. And I don't know their total plan, but I would feel like we want to get a vendor who can do all of our bathrooms, which is going to be, and I do have that, it will be Flat Rock Park, Alexander Park, Lake Oliver, Rose Hill Park, Tillis Park, and Cooper Creek Park. So we want to make sure we're getting the best bang for our buck when we get all of those done together.
Well, and I hope that works out. I know we got risk management funds that, since this was a bathroom that was burnt down, do we have plans that are already drawn up, construction plans?
We are not going to hopefully construct, we will buy an as-built, which is a drop-in bathroom that will come to us, be delivered to us and installed. There is no risk management funding available because that bathroom did not qualify, because at the time it was deemed that it did not meet the threshold for $50,000, which was needed for our insurance.
Well, risk management funds could be available. It's just a matter if it's approved to be available. So there's no threshold or any, that's our risk management funds. We're self-insured.
Well, I think, her point is, of course, I know you get the point, but typically, risk management will, if there's insurance proceeds to be received, they will receive those proceeds and make sure that if it's an automobile that someone else was at fault, then that money goes back to take care of the automobile. And in this case, we don't fund risk management for constructing things. They don't have a budget for that. And so, and I think you're saying that the threshold, the deductible for the insurance is probably $50,000?
Yes, sir.
And so this didn't meet that
No,
threshold?
sir, it did not,
And
because
so
we
they just don't have a
immediately
budget
asked.
to fund a restroom out of risk management dollars?
But we could create a budget, correct?
We could, during the budget process, we could give risk management a budget for replenishing things, but we have not done that to date.
All right, because it is considered fire damage.
Yeah, but.
I understand.
Yeah, I'm saying if we don't give them a budget and we have a loss that insurance won't cover, then they don't have a budget to cover.
No, well, we knew that from day one, that insurance
Yeah,
wasn't going to
so,
cover
yeah.
it. But we would have to cover it, but we
Yeah, we
could
would,
cover it.
yeah, you would have to cover it out of reserve funds
Or
or
a fund.
some, yeah, or
Yeah.
another fund.
So just to clarify, we do have a policy for property insurance. We're not self-funded for property, and our policy on most of our facilities has a deductible of $50,000. So when the bathroom burned down, at that time, it didn't meet the threshold, so there was no claim filed with our insurance company.
Right, so that's for the policy. I'm talking about our risk
Yeah,
management fund.
but
Our
Which that's-
risk management fund
It would
is,
come under risk management.
right,
technically.
but we don't fund risk management,
right.
as the city manager stated, to handle projects. The funds that come in pay for either workers' comp or insurance policies that are purchased.
Right, okay. All right,
but we need to handle that, Counselor. I mean, we need to get the restroom in place.
thank you, Ms. City Manager. Thank you, Director Browder. My next questions, real quick, are for Director Pruitt. Is he still here?
He stepped out.
Is he gone?
Yeah, he should be here.
Mayor, I'll just yield my time to next.
Okay.
Okay.
Counselor Hickey.
Director Browder, good morning. Well, good afternoon now. It's probably after lunch. Yeah, it's 1 o'clock. Question about the Aquatic Center. I know that Councilor Tucker just asked you about the, what we take in and what it costs us to run it. You say you'll come back with those numbers. But currently, on an average, how many swim meets are you hosting there?
I have to stop and think for a moment because we host very large swim meets such as the NAIA National Swimming and Diving. We host the GRPA state meet, and then we host a multitude. I would have to ask the question because a lot of them are smaller meets that we work with the local clubs to host. They often host a state club meet as well as weekend meets. So I'll have to get you that number because I don't want to guess, but I believe it's a lot more than people will realize that we host. If I had to guess, somewhere in the 10 to 20. But I don't want to be inaccurate in that because not only do we host those, but we also partner with the school district. So we're hosting their swim meets as well. So it would be a simple guess if I try to give you a number, but I will get you, I'll send that when I send the revenue and the cost.
Okay, and how much do we charge different organizations to come in and when we put on these swim meets for them?
So there's a lot of variables to that. It depends on whether we're charging by what they call a splash fee. So a splash fee is how many times you're going to have events or activities. So if, for example, you have a child who's going to swim in 5 events, they might pay 5 splash fees because they're going to compete 5 different times. So it varies by the different type of event or what it's going to be. Whether it's like a college event, it would be a rental cost where we work with Columbus Sports Council, or where it's the local and it's just a splash fee. So it varies.
Okay, and when it comes, what is the ordinance in place when it comes to hosting events indoor at the pools, when it comes to, the weather? For example, like do we host meets during the time when well, let me just say this. When the inclement weather is occurring, lightning and stuff like that, how does the ordinance read on that?
So it's not necessarily an ordinance, it's the health department
Okay.
that we operate under. And every county in the state of Georgia is a little bit different, but as we work through ours, it's within so many miles of the facility. So we'll continue to operate right up until, I believe it's 6 to 10 miles. We will operate until we get a notice that says, hey, there's lightning within 6 miles of the aquatic center. And then we pull everyone from the pool at that point.
Okay, and so I'm not familiar with the structure of it, but I know that we have lightning rods on top, right?
I'm not the best one to ask. Mr. Pruitt is probably a better, and I'm not sure if he was involved when it was originally done.
Okay.
Johnny, you want to answer about the lightning?
I believe it was 4 years ago.
Yes.
We had a grounding system put on that building.
Okay,
When it was built, there was not one.
okay,
And it just amazed me that they built a pool with no grounding. So yes, it does have lightning suppression.
okay. And so with that lightning suppression that we have there currently, is that a possibility that we could still host events with inclement weather?
No.
So we
If
still,
lightning gets within, you said 6, I thought it was 5, but if lightning gets within 5 miles, no, you pull those people out of that water.
Okay.
Because even though we're comfortable with the system we have in place.
Right.
There's always that chance,
okay, okay,
and we don't want to take that chance.
right, I understand, okay, all right, thank you. The other question I had is, well, for me, I don't know whether you know this or not, but I ran Eastway Youth Football for almost 10 years, where Travis played, I played there. I even think a lot of other people, probably here present, probably was a cheerleader or played there at one of these programs. And youth sports and recreation opportunities are vital to our community. When I was growing up here in Columbus, born and raised, grew up in the housing projects of Warren Williams, we used to have what we call recreational teachers on the playground. And we used to have the green buses. I don't know if everybody remember those. We used to drive around to different rec centers and play against each other, whether it was flag football, basketball, you know, horseshoes, or whatever the case may be. So it's very vital to our community, youth sports. And I would just like to know, I know that when I ran Eastway Youth Football, we had a partnership with the city where we would maintain and run the programs, but the city would come out and help us with the maintenance and things like that. I know that currently over at Edgewood area, which is next to the soccer complex, their concession stand area is in need of some repairs and things. And I was going to get with the president over there to see who can I point her to help her get it up and running, maybe get it some remodeling done therefore. And I know that out at Shirley Winston Park, there may be some stuff there that needs to be done as well. And so I was wondering, and then also East Columbus baseball field. What are the plans for the city? Is that location is part of in your budget of going in to help with the fields and get them back up and running, and working with the league presidents there as well?
So I'm going to go back for football for just a moment. So if it's a city facility and it's a city building, then the league needs to notify us if there's upgrades or something that needs to be changed. We've just done that we do it every season with every league and every organization, whether it be baseball, football, softball, whoever. And then we'll look back to our friends back here in Public Works because they handle it. We're just the pass-through for the work orders. But we make sure, excuse me, we make sure that it gets passed through to them, and we work with them very closely, whether it's their department that does the work, or we have an outside vendor that comes in, a contractor, to do the work. But we just need to be aware if there's a concern. We had an example, I'll use Shirley Winston for a moment. There were some electrical concerns in the concession that we needed to address. But we don't go in the concessions. We don't even have keys to the concessions. We want there to be no, question that we have access, or any of our staff have access to the materials and supplies that the leagues have purchased. And so we don't necessarily know if there's a problem unless they let us know. I know as far as football goes, we've already done evaluations from a lighting standpoint, and we've worked closely with Public Works to get ahead so that when we get to football season that we're good to go. But anything beyond that, things that we couldn't see, they need to very quickly go ahead and let us know so we can get with Public Works to get it addressed as soon as possible. And then regards of the baseball fields, I think it's one of those things that, yes, there is a request. It goes in our budget for things such as that to do upgrades. Sometimes it's equipment related, and sometimes it's contract related, where we just need to come in and take the lip off the ball field, add some more dirt, and make changes.
Okay.
So yes, sir.
And also, over at Boxwood Rec, I had the opportunity last week. They had a back-to-school drive that they was doing, giving out book bags and supplies, school supplies to the children in the area. And had an opportunity to speak with the recreation director there. And she was telling me one of her biggest concerns there, we got guys driving through on four-wheelers. And of course, I was going to get with Chief Mathis on trying to help us with that. But you have a gate there. What is your, when the facility is open for business, what is the policy on locking that gate while they're there to keep these four-wheelers from coming through?
We don't lock it when we're open to the public because we get a lot of elderly in that area. There's often elderly individuals who frequent Boxwood. So we wouldn't want to close the gate because then that would limit their access. Plus, there's no parking. Until you come through our gate, there's no parking. So they would need to be able to come in. So we've never locked the gate there. We've done exactly what you just referenced. We would contact Chief Mathis to have them to assist us in curtailing some of the four-wheelers. It's not the first time. Periodically, they'll be out there as they are in other parks. We'll get with Chief Mathis, they'll crack down, they'll help us, and then the next thing we know, they've popped up somewhere else. So it's just due diligence between us and the police department to make sure we stay on them, so they don't do that, because that's not something that we need. They go out and they destroy the fields, which we have a soccer, if you're not familiar, please check out. We have an amazing soccer program out there that uses that complex as well, that we've partnered with now for probably about 10 years.
Yeah, and that was one of my other things that I was going to mention, is that the soccer program there is an awesome program, and I just would hate to see those, kids out there, practicing or playing a game, and we got four-wheelers running through on them, and could
And we
possibly
have
hurt
called,
somebody.
they, along with staff, have called the police when we've had any issues, because that's not something we can tolerate.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
sir.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Pruitt, I think Counselor Davis.
Right,
had
before
a
you
question.
leave, Director Browder, just back one question. You mentioned about preparing for the upcoming seasons, all lifeguard related. What are we doing to prepare to make sure that we're able to secure or, well, develop and secure lifeguards to,
We're continually
Work with
advertising and trying to solicit for lifeguards, whether it's social media, because honestly, most of our guards are teenagers or high school age, but we'll continue to do all of the things that I outlined earlier, reaching out to different groups, different school systems, trying to acquire, whether it be teachers or youth as lifeguards. We'll continue to do that. That can't change for us.
are there any training programs out there available?
Yes, so I wasn't going to say it, but when Counselor Tucker was calling earlier, the reason that people are coming or that lifeguards are leaving us and going to other organizations is because we do a great job of training them. We do a great job. There's no cost to them. We train them. We do everything that's necessary to prepare them to be that #1 lifeguard, and then they leave us and they go other places because we do a great job. Or the staff does a great job. It's not myself, but the staff does an amazing job. But we'll continue to do that. So yes, we continue to offer classes. People will, so for an example, if you had a high school student that wanted to all of a sudden become a lifeguard, they call the aquatic center or they call the department and ask the question, hey, where can I get certified? We refer them directly to the staff that we have that does the training. And then over a period of time, a class is set up and they're trained and certified.
What normal hours, what would be the hours normally for a lifeguard?
What do you
On a
mean,
day.
lifeguards to work? Oh, it varies. So we have a morning shift typically that comes in at about 5:45 a.m., depending on how many hours they themselves, we work with them as well, depending on their schedule, especially now as we go back to school. We'll have some that do work study or co-op or whatever their school district calls it. They may come in and work the morning and work till right before lunch because most of the schools require that they be there at lunch.
4 or 5 hours?
Yeah, something like that. Or they're coming in after school and working 3 to 8. They're working the hours on the weekend. So they're picking some part of those hours because we're open from 6 to 8 during the week, 10 to 2.
Roughly on a week, how many hours will a lifeguard put in?
No more than 29. It's based on their schedule, so it could be as few as, 15 or 20, but as many as 29. It depends honestly on the student.
Okay.
Yes,
All
sir.
right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Director Pruitt, I guess we're under contractual agreement. I'll get back to these pools, the 3 pools that we're talking about. I guess we're under contractual agreement with the contractors, right, on those?
Yes, correct.
And when was the, when was the start date on the pools?
So I don't have the exact date off the top of my head, just trying to remember the timeline. Obviously, the SPLOST was, passed in November of 21. Collections began in April of 22. And the first obligation we had was to the bonds for the government center. So funding, if I'm correct, for the pools wasn't available until January of 23 to begin expending funds. So we had a contract, and I don't remember the exact date council would have approved the design and build contract, but it would have been in the fall. It was before, I know it was in the fall of 22 when we got them under contract, and then they began the design work for those 3 pools.
And we talked about we needed, what, 15 million
Yes.
for the pools?
Yeah, 15 million was the budget from the SPLOST.
What normally does a penny bring in
What do you mean?
on the year?
It brings
38,
somewhere
39.
between 40 and 45 million a year.
I think I saw budgeted 48, is that?
That's right, it's 40 to 40, yeah. I think we may be around 48, but typically, I think we projected 40 million a year over a 10-year period for the sales tax.
Yeah, so the original projection was a 10-year SPLOST at 400 million, which was 40 million a year, and we're collecting about 45 million a year.
Okay. What was the, I'm sure these are all stipulated in the contract. What about the completion date for those pools? Was there a completion date on them?
Yes, there was a timeline, submitted through the RFP and incorporated into the contract, a certain duration, number of weeks that, from whenever the notice to proceed was till when the completion date was.
What was that date?
I'd have to go find that information from when the contracts were signed and all that.
And normally a contractor would add inclement weather days. Was that involved? Was that agreed to in the contract?
Yes, if I recall correctly, there's a baseline amount of days. Obviously, if it exceeds that or there's other unforeseen issues that pop up, then, there may be additional delays, no fault of the contractor.
Okay, so the pools were architecturally designed, right? Drawn up and designed?
Correct.
Okay, and then the health department came in, did their initial approvals on it?
So we submitted, like any commercial pool in the state of Georgia. Some counties actually regulate it themselves, but in Muskogee County, any commercial pool, so if we had a water park, any of our public pools, any hotel pool falls under the jurisdiction of the health department. So just like any other customer, we submitted plans to the health department for their review and approval, and there was one issue of major concern that they had regarding the decking separating the different areas of our pools. And that's kind of what the issue was. These pools, the regulations for these pools from the state, there's a little bit of gray area just because they're not cut and dry hotel pools and things like that. And so the health department's interpretation was that we needed to add that decking, which caused the redesign, versus our designers felt like their original concept met the intent of the code.
Well, you would have decking anyway. They would just probably, whether they increase the decking square footage or something, is that what they did?
Yeah, so it was, there was a little peninsula between the zero entry area and the lazy river, and we just had it actually was a peninsula with a netting.
What's the decking? Is the decking made of concrete?
Yeah, it's concrete
So
decking.
it's just poured in concrete pads, right? Okay. So they gave you the compliance on it, right?
Yeah, and so we were able to get the permits for all three pools. The first one we got at the end of March.
So you just submitted them to come and give you a permit, right?
Yeah, so we submitted again starting back in November, or the end of October, I believe. That was when we originally submitted the drawings, and so working through the comments and revising the plans took until March to satisfy the health department.
Why
24.
Why would that take place if everything was signed off in compliance?
So again, it was a difference in, again, the health department interpreted the code differently than the design team did. And so when the original plans were submitted, the architects and engineers had signed the plans, which is no different than what my department does on a daily basis, to where an architect submits plans. Obviously they feel that they've met all the requirements of the code, and then the authority having jurisdiction looks at it. And again, the health department's opinion was that the original design did not meet.
The code is the code.
Right.
It's pretty simple when it comes to pools.
Well, these are, they call them.
Outside of life safety and handicap matters, okay?
Right.
But those are, a lot of that stuff is add-on type stuff.
Again, these with the different features these have, with the slides and the lazy river, they fall into a different, I can't recall the term that they use in the code, in the pool code, right off the top of my head, but they fall into that special category. And so there's a little more interpretation and gray area with those pools that is up for the health department.
I just want you to know I'm struggling. It was intriguing to listen to Councilor Thomas's questions, but I'm just struggling with November to March. We're a municipality, we're a city entity. We work with the state on a regular basis. 3 months to get a permit, when normally, look, I would go out of business if I had to wait that long to get a permit from the health department, and I've never had that issue with them before. These things should be worked out on the front end. So I'm still struggling with this matter with the health department taking so long. And then I'm also struggling, I think during the budget session, it was stated that inclement weather days also had an impact, but we've had some good weather too. So, that concerns me, and I just wanted to verify that and just, check some of these. So we are in these contractual obligations spelling everything out, what the expectations are of the general contractors.
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Counselor Kogle?
I wanted to talk about a little bit about the aquatic center. My daughter swims on the swim team, and we've been involved with the hurricanes. And I'm a previous swimmer myself, so I have a little bit of knowledge, and a retired lifeguard, I guess. So, the boiler system, I know that we just listened to the talk about the heating system not having any issues, and I'm really kind of struggling with that, because the last we've been involved with the hurricanes and the aquatic center for the last 7 years. So and I can trace back almost to the exact week every year during Thanksgiving or sometime in November, where our boiler system goes down to a point where the pool, I think last year the pool temperature was somewhere in the, I think at one point it was 69 degrees, so 69, 72 degrees, which competitive swimming, if you're watching the Olympics, competitive swimming is somewhere around 76 to 78 degrees. So this is chilly. And so since I'm on the hurricanes email list, I got an email from from the board president, I guess, a couple weeks ago, that says that Parks and Rec has shared with us that they've submitted a request for emergency funding to the city manager to repair the boilers and the associated equipment and pipes. The significant overhaul to the pool's equipment should address the identified problems that they believe are causing the issues with reliable heating during the winter. And as you can imagine, it is a hefty bill totaling the upwards of $100,000, and the equipment takes approximately 3 months to arrive once ordered. It's imperative that the process begins this summer, and they have been unable to secure funding for this emergency request. We're asking that you throw your support behind this request by reaching out to your city council members and asking them to support the request for secure funding and prompt action. And so, in my position, sitting up here, I was a little bit taken aback by this, because this is something that I hadn't heard before, and we continually ask about the heating, and that we're told that everything is okay. And I'm concerned for the upcoming winter, where we're going to have to shut down our pool again due to boilers that are not operational. And so several minutes ago, we're assured that everything is okay, but at the same time, we're being told by people that are using the aquatic center that we're communicating that we need $100,000 in repairs. So which one is it?
I'll have to let Mr. Harp answer, because again, they do all the repairs. They communicate with the vendors, not the department.
I know what you're talking about. We've discussed it. We've discussed it in the past. But after getting qualified people to look at everything, it was determined that we can repair what we have. And as she said, we have brought the pool up to temperature. And we have other repairs scheduled for when they shut down, so that we should have no issues this winter with the temperature in the water.
We should, or we will not?
I cannot
I
promise you
mean,
we will
are we at a
not.
point where we need to replace the whole system, or are we gonna keep piecing it together piece by piece, or do we need to find the funding to replace the boiler system?
And there's one boiler. That's all we have. There was no redundancy built into this system. There's one boiler, there's one giant pump.
Right,
So
so my
even if-
question is, do we
even
need
if
to
we put
replace
in
it,
a-
or do we need to piece it back together?
Personally, I don't think we need to replace it. Because on a scale of 1 to 10, that boiler's probably running about 8.5. I mean, it is 10 years old, 11 years old, so no, it's not perfect. But it's probably better than anything we could buy today. And so all the parts are readily available. We're accumulating all of the normal parts that go out. The igniters, the thermostats, the circulating pumps. We're building a stockpile of these parts so that if one goes down, we don't have to wait 2 weeks to get it or 3 weeks to get it. We'll have it on hand. Now, we just replaced the pump, the circulating pump. Now, if that pump breaks, we'll have to shut down and order a new one. The pump was, I think it was like, help me, what was it, $70,000? Yeah, to get that pump replaced. So it's too expensive to buy one to sit over in the corner for it to just sit there.
What's the life expectancy of the boiler?
Of the boiler,
And the
25
pumps?
years. The pump is hard to say, because what happened to it last time is, like I told you earlier, we had a water flow problem, so the pump ran dry. And when it ran dry, the impeller just destroyed itself from getting hot. And so that's what caused us the last issue. When they shut down in August, we do have plans to make some other upgrades to hopefully avoid any problems this winter with the water temperature. But I can't stand here and tell you there's not going to be one. I don't have that crystal ball.
The other question that I had was in reference to the lightning policy of, I was up at Georgia Tech this past weekend at the Georgia State Championships, and I know at UGA and several other major pools in Georgia, as well as any other major pool in the U.S. I know that they have a lightning a policy that falls on the meet directors for major events. And so I had talked to some of our and this has been kind of an ongoing issue with previous coaches over at the aquatic center, where they express frustration coming in from other major pools where we are holding swim meets and we're unable to promise the teams and the other entities that we won't shut our pool down during a storm. Now, let's just say if there's a hurricane, that's a completely different story. But at all of these other meets, and even, I think you can even go back to the Paris Olympics right now where it's storming. None of these other entities, if it is storming, do they shut down the meet in order to wait for the lightning pass or wait for the storms to pass. And so I know we've lost a lot of revenue in Columbus due to entities like NCAA coming in to wanting to host some swim meets, and even this past time with the NAIA, there was a lightning delay, I believe, and so they do have some concerns about coming back to Columbus, because there is the potential where they have to either delay for the whole day or they have to shorten the meet, which if you're talking about a championship is not possible. And so I think that we need to really take a look at what the other entities do in the state of Georgia. I spoke to the meat director over at Georgia Tech this weekend, and their lightning policy at Tech does fall on the meat director to make that call. And so it does fall under their insurance policy as well. But I do think if we're talking about bringing in appropriate revenue to the city for these major swim meets, and we want to be an attraction for major swim meets like this and more athletic events, we do need to as a council, we do need to take a look at who makes that call. Is it Parks and Recreation, or is it the meet director, who that falls under, so.
So I might have to defer to the city attorney's office for this, because many years ago, we tried to get and I don't know I'm not an attorney, so I can't think of what the word was, from the state that would allow us to continue to have a meet, even though our facility is designed in the way it was.
Right.
And we were not able to receive that from the state. They denied us. So then that puts the liability back on the city itself, because we're self-insured. So it was deemed at that time that that we were not willing to accept that liability should something happen, when we were made aware that we needed to close because of the facility. And I defer to the city attorney's office if I'm incorrect, but that's what was found at that time.
This is not working. No, yeah, there's a microphone right here. I think I turned it on.
Several years ago, we had the issue she's talking about popped up, and we sent in a request, I think a written request to the state asking for a lightning waiver, or waiver of the lightning cutoff requirement, and they denied the request. So either run afoul of the state's direction if you proceed
I don't think
without their blessing,
Secretary
and
of State
you
issues.
do it at your peril.
Which state entity did that? Was it the health department, the legislature, who did it?
So they're
Maybe community affairs, we'd have to look.
So they're
back.
unwilling to issue that for Columbus, Georgia, but Columbus Tech and Athens is okay?
If I remember correctly, I remember when this happened, because we had a meet that didn't come because they had to sign that waiver.
Right.
And I thought that they determined that at that time, there was no waiver. They weren't going to do it. Now, what happened, I think, is when we asked, is they said, well, Georgia Tech in particular was just willing to risk it. They felt like their system was strong enough, and they would just ignore it and moving on. I thought too, we had a grounding system in place when it was first constructed, just not enough of one.
I think you can, I don't know. I think that there's been several entities that have also reached out to Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State has just politely said that they don't do that sort of thing. So I'll do some more work on it, but I do think.
Also, that might be something you put on your legislative agenda to get them to change the requirement, or at least allow a waiver from another entity.
Okay.
Councilor Kogler, it was a variance is what we had asked for,
Right.
a lightning variance.
Okay.
Hold on, for Council.
Is that all, Councilor Cook?
Yeah,
Can I
that's
say
all.
something real quick?
Councilor Chambers?
Let me say something real quick, if you don't mind, Council Chambers, real quick. I think when we had that conversation going, did we ever figure out who was responsible? If lightning hit the pool and a child dies, were we responsible? I think we had that conversation back then.
Well, the county would not be liable, but any individuals involved in the process could have been sued and subject to personal liability, so it's not worth that risk.
I think that's where the caution came in.
Councilor Chambers?
Councilor Chambers, go ahead.
So mine will be very quick. I know we have 134 vacancies, And a while back, there was a market study done on jobs. I don't know, was it Evergreen?
Yes, sir.
Were these positions included in that market analysis, market study?
Part-time positions were not, to
Okay.
my knowledge, and I could be incorrect, but no, sir, part-time were not, full-time were.
Okay. And the only reason I ask, because in order to, and I think training is a very important component, but in order to attract and retain, I think we have to have competitive wages. So I really would like us to take a look at that.
We do very competitive training when it comes to our youth workers. They go through a myriad of training before we even allow them to be in proximity to children, because we believe that strongly in it. And they go through a hefty amount just because, and we're known for that. Our department is well known for that across the community. And again, we lose a lot of our staff to some of the schools who then start up their own programs because they're taking our staff, which is kudos to our amazing staff that do all this training. But that's where we lose some of our staff to as well, when they decide, a school decides to open their own program or do something different. Many times we're very fortunate because the staff that we have work at those very same schools. So it's advantageous for both of us.
And secondly, I know you stated that our youth were transported to the pools through Metro.
Yes, sir.
Is there any way that I can get a number, the number of students that were transported, and what were the locations that they were picked up at?
I'll defer to Deputy City Manager because I'm not aware of Metro and how they track.
We can get that information from you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Davis, did you have something?
Yeah, I just, that lifeguard situation, I tell you, you might have to do more than just focus on the salary, because then you're going to get in a competitive type situation where you're only talking $29 a week when you add it all up, even if you go up $1 and compared to what you have on this list. I mean, you may have to do some things that are more creative to inspire these kids to stay and want to work for the Parks and Recs, because another
Absolutely.
entity goes up and then we just get in this competitive wage fight
Absolutely.
in the market, and you got a problem. So we may want to think about trying to come up with some creative things that we can do for these kids that may make the difference in them staying here versus going and making
Absolutely.
the same wage right up the street.
One of them is still tied, unfortunately, to funding and to wages because, and Counselor, you were here back during the time when we did this. So for many, many, many years, I won't even say how many, lifeguards were given a bump each year when they came back. Way back when it was, and the mayor's nodding, so I know he remembers as well. They were given a quarter, which in this day and age is nothing, but they were given a quarter raise per hour if they returned. Gone are the days that we see returning. It's very few lifeguards that we have returning. So we need some type of incentive program, but our incentive program was done away when we moved to the $14 because it took us from, I think we were at $9.50, $9.57 or something at that point. That was done away with, and we said then that we would reevaluate it. So we're back now. We need to reevaluate,
Well,
and to your point, be creative.
Kids like entertainment, they like fun things. We've got a lot of venues that we can offer. Maybe there's some perks and things that we could add on to this and make it more attractive. Other entities can't do that.
Sure.
We can. So that's why I say we might want to get creative. The Clifton, I thought we did something that we allowed the tournament directors to go ahead and make the decision on the situation when it came to lightning with these tournaments. I thought we were clear on that from a policy standpoint many years ago.
We'll have to look back. If they did it on their own, then they took on the possible liability, so.
Well, we went through that exercise, which I think that's what we stated, but it being self-insured, we wouldn't have a liability anyway, just like any other situation, correct?
We'll have to pull it out, Counselor. I know we applied to the State Department of Health or DCA, and they denied the waiver, and then whether or not somebody
Well, we
with
might have been
the
asking
tournament
for-
made a decision.
I guess my point is we might have been asking for something that we didn't really need anyway, and we should have left the decision up to the tournament directors, and they have liability insurance, and if something happens, they're responsible. I think we talked about communicating that. I thought that's what we were doing
Well,
Because there
that
was
may still be the
concern.
case, but we'll just
It
have
is.
to look.
Well, there was a concern
It
of
is.
losing all these tournaments when we had this is when we had a brand-new natatorium.
Was an instance where somebody was concerned about the lightning policy for a large mid-level tournament, and that I remembered
came
us
up with a
giving them an
solution.
opportunity to determine if they wanted to assume responsibility, and they said no. Which I guess it sounds a little inconsistent from what Councilor Cogle was saying, because it sounds like if the universities are allowing it, they're doing it if the meet director assumes responsibility, which would indicate to me they've got some type of insurance, so. All right. Oh, Councilor Huff.
Good, come on. Okay, first of all, Primus King was mentioned earlier. You and I had a conversation years ago that if the city was involved, you may have to rebuild
Yes, sir.
at the supercenter size or something you told me.
Yes, sir.
We don't have that kind of space. So, moving forward, I'd like to meet with you to see if it's possible that if we could get a nonprofit in there and get the city to demolish the site and be able to put a building back there the same size to be managed by a nonprofit.
Yes, sir. Anything's possible. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Because I know we were doing another project, there's a water type flood zone with all the fields being downhill. But we've been looking at trying to get some activity down there too, but especially up top. And thank you for what you do for the basketball area, picnic area, because they play there daily, all weekend. Benning Park, Councilor Cogle and a couple of people and I had talked over time. And I don't know where you are in this, but we were looking at some of the tennis courts to be made multi-purpose courts for street hockey, pickleball, or whatever.
So we've been working with Jack Rosenheimer on how we can make that happen, but also Corda has come before this body as well and asked to retain all of the tennis courts. So we have two opposing opinions at this point. So we're both working with both entities to see how we can collaborate and make that useful for everybody.
Which entity said they all needed to remain tennis courts?
Corda.
Corda, okay. I need to meet with Corda and see where we are. The Corda works with Girls Inc.
Yes.
With the tennis, and that was part of the discussion that half of it would be left for tennis for that purpose.
Right. Or to utilize the court surface that would be created for the floor hockey so that it could still be utilized for tennis. And is there a way to create a surface material that will allow us to do floor hockey, tennis, pickleball, and basketball all in that one area? Because those are things that we lack at this point, but we have to get smarter when we put something back and make it multi-purpose so that more entities can use it collaboratively.
Yeah, that's what I was shown.
Yes,
What
that's
you
what our
stated
goal,
last,
that's
that-
what our goal is, that we
Okay.
would like to build.
And then the other
or
piece would be set for
renovate.
tennis for Corda, Girls Inc.
Yes. We're certainly not wanting them not to have access, not to be able to use it, but we're just trying to figure out a better way so that everyone can use it.
Okay, okay. Softball fields, down the road.
They're part
where-
of the SPLOST
Okay.
project that will occur.
Will they be included in the fields as far as tournaments downtown as far
Yes,
as?
so, and I think because you've attended some of those, that Benning Park is usually our backup complex often for the tournaments that we hold at South Commons, especially the larger adult tournaments, because we lack adult fields here in the city of Columbus, but we don't own any other land to build additional fields. And so Benning Park is that backup complex. We are slated to begin SPLOS or start to receive funding in fiscal year 26-27. And so part of the renovation of that park would be to demolish and renovate all of those fields, tear down the concession stand bathrooms, and build all of it back. And then that improves our opportunity to host larger tournaments or different tournaments that perhaps Sports Council or ourselves, we can't do now.
Okay, okay. And I heard mentioned earlier, they mentioned about hours and things. Moving forward, I'd like to sit down with you as far as looking at types of programs.
We were being proactive on our side, especially starting with football, that we've already gone out and done the lights. They're already scheduling the walkthroughs with the leagues. They do that, but it's more about when we can get those league individuals, because they're volunteers and they have regular 9 to 5 or jobs elsewise and families of their own. And so a lot of times it's based on their schedules, but I know that they've been coordinating those already, because we don't want to wait to the last minute and then find out, in Councilor Hickey's, question earlier, what needs to be done, because then we're putting that on Public Works, and that's a lot. That's a heavy load for them to carry at the last minute. So anything we can do proactively on the front end, but yes, staff have been creating, if you call it punch lists, but checklist, if you will, as they go through each of the different facilities and working with the leagues.
Yeah, and one of the things that we had discussed really is to put accountability on both sides, that we have that sheet and they sign it. They sign it and date it, that all these things have been addressed. This was their punch list, and it really covers our employees that we went through this and this is what you said at this date, and that everything was okay.
Absolutely, and staff have been, I've instructed staff to put it in an email so that we have it in writing and it goes to the individual as well, so yes.
All right, so that was one, because I know we're coming up on that season and it's about to be nice crazy. On May 21st, and I had mentioned it in a previous council meeting, but we had an incident at Shirley B during voting. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people don't know the separation that the gym side, they go into their entry, and then the voting side is separate. And I know I had mentioned possibly just allowing voting only on early voting days and election day. But definitely for election day, I can't think of what day it was, but it was the Secretary of State came down, will vote to vote the vet or vote to vet. So trying to get more veterans to be poll watchers. And unfortunately, Columbus, that did actually make it to the Secretary of State office what happened. It wasn't an official complaint, but of course they keep things on their radar when it makes the news. So even if we can just close on election day, is that something possible? I know we don't have a dedicated senior center or actually events, and even when we have youth sports, they're outside. Most of the time we don't even allow them to come in the facility during practice time because they have outside bathrooms and concession stands and stuff. So it's to help Nancy Bourne out to definitely close it on election day, where the facility is just used for voting.
Yes, I do believe that's absolutely possible. The concern that I heard from the community, because somehow in the community they found out about the concern and wanting to possibly close us on early voting, because of how many days that is, we would be closed for an extensive period of time to the public. So there was concern from that side of it. But for simply closing, we can post, I mean, it would almost be like, if you will, a holiday when we're closed, but we put up notice way in advance. We let the public know, hey, on this day, we're going to be closed because it's XYZ. I don't think there would be as much concern. It affects some of our, obviously Shirley Winston, which is a voting site. It doesn't affect all of our locations, so they would have the option to go to another one. The same for the seniors, because oftentimes voting will use Gallups. And so that allows us for our seniors to go to Frank Chester or Edgewood.
Yeah, and that was one of the things. I know that at Carver Park, the senior citizens have a time, I think it's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, if they're still doing it. I'm not sure if Mr. Wilson is keeping the schedule that Courtney had when she was there, but I know they have activities for senior citizens.
They do.
And then towards the evening, they do more of the basketball for, the youth and young adults. But if we could just do it on that election day, and also put information out of, you know, they can go here for
Sure.
this type of event at this time and this event at that time.
Sure.
Thank you. That's all.
All right. Molly, I think that's it for the questions.
Okay, thank you, Director Browder, for that. Next, we have the ARP update with Deputy City Manager Pam Hodge.
So good afternoon. Just to provide an update on where we are with expending the ARP funds, and we'll have at the conclusion, funds that are available for reallocation based on where all the departments are with their projects, and then a recommendation on how those funds, we're recommending those funds to be utilized. Again, just to reiterate what we've talked about, the ARP became law back in 2021, and it was funding that was available to local government to address the pandemic. There were certain things that the funds could be used for, to include the response to public health, paying workers for performing those essential work, revenue replacement for the government, and then investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. The City of Columbus, as a consolidated government, we did qualify both as a city and a county. The total allocation was almost $78.5 million. That was received in two increments of $39,241,000. Out of the total $78.4 million, we've expended $50,154,000. We've encumbered or ordered items as approved by council for $13,777,000. In process is $520,000, and a balance just over $14 million. There is a requirement that the funds are obligated by December of 2024 and expended by December of 2026. So we are moving forward with that process to make sure that we remain in compliance with the requirements. We provide quarterly reporting and have been in compliance with that, and we have to maintain for 5 years after all funds are expended. So we had phase 1 projects, and all of these projects were approved by council. So in phase 1, the automation of the garbage collection, both the trucks and the cans, have been purchased, and as you know, are in operation. There was ambulances in phase 1 that has been completed. The summer youth program, the initial allocation for ARP phase 1 was $350,000. That has been expended to date through the program this summer. Cure Violence, we've expended $300,000 out of the $500,000 that was approved. And then phase 1 of the camera program, those funds have been expended. We're still working through the broadband cybersecurity upgrades of $3 million. That is moving forward. The last project is the Trade Center, and that's under review. Revenue recovery out of phase 1 has been recognized, as well as the premium pay for public safety and other essential employees. We've also completed phase 1 of the small business grant program. That was a total of $4,850,000. And we've also utilized the administrative funds related to phase 1. So as we get into phase 2, these were the projects that were approved by council, and I've highlighted those funds that are available for reallocation. I will summarize those at the end, so you don't need to keep track of those. But the affordable housing, the $3 million, we have selected the partners as have been approved by council, so those are moving forward. Funds have not been expended yet, but they will be. The utility assistance program, this was a $2 million allocation. Those funds have been expended. We were able to provide service to 2,193 households, which equated to 4,629 individuals. Of those, 2,400 children were under the age of 18, 844 disabled persons, and 709 elderly. So we did reach a significant amount of our community through this program. The Homeowner Occupied Rehab Program, which is HARP. You've heard Director Scott come to council and provide updates on this. We have received over 600 applications so far. We're at about $3 million for this program with a maximum amount per household of $30,000. So if each household spends $30,000, that's 100 that we're able to service. And again, we've had over 600 applications. So that program has been very successful in getting out to the community. And so we're working through qualifying those applicants so we can make those improvements to their home. The job training program, allocation was $1.1 million. They've expended 144, committed for 541. So there will be an amount of $461,000 that's available for reallocation. The mental health training intervention, there will be $392,000 available for reallocation. The substance abuse treatment program, those services, we did not have any projects that came forward that would fall into that category, so we are showing that as available for reallocation. Community Safeguard Program, the $400,000 for the Poverty Reduction Initiative, that contract was approved with United Way, and that's expended $50,000 to date. And then the Family Connection Program of $500,000, and that Navigator program has expended $118,000 to date. On the public safety, $3.1 million. The gun buyback program was a program that was submitted originally. Those funds are available for reallocation. The police department is not wanting to move forward with that program at this time. And so there are funds available of $292,000. A portion of that, just over $7,000, was used for the Columbus Police Department IBIS program. It was originally budgeted at $350,000, and we've expended $357,000. So a portion of that gun buyback program paid for the overage in that IBIS project. The mobile command vehicle is ordered. We anticipate delivery in 2024, August of 2024. So it should be next month that we'll get a delivery, and I'm sure Chance Corbett will be here to make sure everyone gets a tour of that, and we're really excited. I've seen some preliminary pictures as it's being developed. So that will be a good addition to our community. Ambulance at $1.6 million, and those funds will be expended. The judicial backlog program, $486,000, and those funds will be expended by the end of the year. For facility improvements, the Civic Center HVAC, $2.25 million, that was approved by council, so that's moving forward. That project we did have to supplement from the Civic Center funds and from the Friends of Columbus funds for the Civic Center of over $2 million. So this project came in well over what the initial budget for that improvement was. The Trade Center HVAC and the Liberty Theater HVAC, those plans are being developed now, and so that will be coming back to council for approval. The land acquisition for the cemetery, those funds of $200,000 are available for reallocation. We are using city land, so there won't be an allocation or an acquisition required for that. And then administration, $478,000. We've expended $21,000 of that, but we'll have administrative expenses through 2026 that can be utilized for filing the reports and the reporting requirements. Revenue recovery of $10.1 million out of phase 2. Those funds have been utilized for the CCG TV upgrades, which is why we're in this facility. Those will be completed in the next week. Cybersecurity, $1.5 million. Those funds will be expended. I mentioned Family Connection. Those were actually revenue recovery funds, and then public safety capital of $7.6 million, and those funds will be expended, as well as the phase 2 and phase 3 of the camera program. So this is the summary of the funding that's available for reallocation. It's a total of just over $2 million. Our recommendation is we apply those funds to a project that's already been approved, which is the HVAC at the Trade Center and the Liberty Theater. We know from the cost that we received on the Civic Center that we anticipate the Trade Center's cost for their HVAC replacement will also exceed the amount budgeted. So our recommendation is to utilize any funds for reallocation towards that project. And then just to provide an update, we did receive an additional $4 million from the state fiscal recovery funds for our small business grant program. We're finalizing those. We have about $238,000 funds available in the small business and about $68,000 available in nonprofits. So we are working with the chamber to work with some of those businesses who started the application and maybe didn't complete it, to make sure that we can expend all of these funds that were allocated to us by the state. Currently, we've served 102 small businesses. We have 3 that are waiting for some additional information, 12 nonprofits, and so we've served over 114 businesses and nonprofits through this program. And just happy to answer any questions.
All right. Counselor Chambers?
Yes, I'll be real quick. For the summer youth development program, how many, was this the summer youth jobs for our youth?
Yes, it was the mayor's summer youth employment program. We've done that for 2-3 years. This is our 3rd year, 4th year.
Starting COVID.
So out of the $350,000, I mean, how many youth were impacted as far as jobs are concerned?
126.
I think this year we had 126. I think last year we had 82. So we did increase the program this year to 126 from prior years.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Counselor Tucker?
Yes, regarding the reallocation of funds, one in reference to the Liberty, what is the status of the Liberty as far as the roof, the mold in the inside of the building, carpet, just everything?
So Public Works has worked with our roof consultant to develop the specifications for the roof. Those specifications are in purchasing right now. They are telling me, I actually emailed them earlier today, that they should be out next week. And so the plan is to have the roof replaced, the mold remediated inside the building, and then the replacement of the HVAC system. And that is the funding that we currently have for Liberty Theater. So it will be at least dried in, clean, with a proper HVAC. And then in FY26, you can expect us to come back for a funding request to do the additional work that needs to be done inside the building.
Okay. I was looking at, I'm thinking this is the community safeguards. I'm trying to see. So community assistant programs focus in QCT tracks of the 12 million allocation. In reference to, I'm kind of going back to the mental health training intervention, that was a little over 392,000 available, and then substance abuse treatment. And I know this is all in the last capture where you had 2-point-something million, but 750 for substance abuse treatment. one of the things that we noticed, we actually had a meeting with public safety regarding mental health calls and a need for mobile integrated healthcare process unit. I know that we have funds in our indigent care, but one of the things that it would be nice, Chief Scarper sent a quote of how much it would actually cost to implement that program, the initial investment. And the initial investment is a little over $3 million. And what this would do would decrease individuals going directly into our jail. We'll do intervention at with this mobile integrated health unit. So you'll have somebody from law enforcement, the fire department, and mental health. So you'll get, when we have these calls, you'll send that unit out. And seeing that we had already allocated funds towards mental health and substance abuse, I was wondering if we could keep that going towards those allocations and do that program, and then offset it with some of our indigent care dollars.
And we can definitely go back and look at that. I know we included in the mental health training intervention, I believe the actual mobile vehicle was $153,000 is what I'm recalling, and I think that's included in this number. But I'll go back and look at the additional requests and to see if it could be covered with any of these funds.
Yeah, and I can send you this.
I have.
You got that one?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
But if we can look at that way, we can at least get those mobile units out. And also, not only are we working with, our entity here, but we have a meeting with Fort Moore as well. So it'll be really, the city and also Fort Moore. And I think it'll be helpful because we do get a lot of mental health calls. And I didn't realize the severity of it, like over 3,000 calls, there are mental health calls. So having this right here dedicated to those mental health calls, I think that will be good. And since we already had it allocated towards mental health.
Sure. Yes, ma'am. I'll look at that.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Who is that? Mr. Hickey.
Ms. Hodge, quick question. When the ARP, when we first got it, and was there anything in place for public safety that when they got sick with COVID, that this funding would help pay them while they were out sick or anything like that?
So we did originally essential workers, and I'm trying to remember exactly what we did, but we had paid, it was an additional funding that we paid them, and I don't recall offhand what that was, but
Okay.
to pay them when they were out for COVID, this funds was not utilized specifically for that, but there was a bonus that was paid to every public safety employee, but I'd have to go back and look. I don't recall exactly what that was. 5,000 comes to mind, but I don't know if that's correct.
I think it might have been 3.
Yeah.
Okay. And my other question is, this reallocation of this $200,000, $292,703, could that money be used to give the police department employees bonus or anything like that?
It would have to meet the requirements of ARP. It couldn't just be used for just an allocation for a bonus, but we can look at how we utilized it for the essential workers and see if there's an additional, anything additional we can do. But I think what we did was for all public safety, not just
Okay,
specifically the police department, but we can go back and look at that. When we did it originally, the total amount paid out for, I'm trying to look, for essential workers was 3.7 million, and that was public safety and general government. We gave different allocations to the different groups, so I don't know how much we could do for 292, but we can look at that and see what that would be.
okay. And one last question. I noticed back, you said that Cure Violence was given 500,000 and they only used 300 right now, or 200, got 300 left. Is there any type of metrics in place showing where those funds are going? Do they have to report back to this council to say where they're spending the money, or any success stories, or anything that they, you know?
So as part of the agreement that we have with them, they do have to provide us reporting on how the funds were utilized, and also any type of indicators that show the success of their program. They have also come to council several times and provided an update. And so we can request that they come back again, or I'll be happy to provide you the reports that they've submitted to us.
Yeah, I'd like to get a copy of that, and then if we can ask them to come back again to just give us a most recent update
Yes, sir.
on where they are. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Deputy City Manager Hodge. Our last and final update is from Darrell Short on jail maintenance, Phase 1, and this is the regarding the life safety improvements.
All right. So, good afternoon. Glad to see everybody still here. I am going to go over some life safety issues that we have identified as the Department of Public Works Facility Maintenance Division that will hopefully help us in mitigating some of the issues that we do have in the jail to keep us going. So the areas that we're going to be looking at are mold remediation, which, as you know, we've been doing and will continue to do, the roof itself, our plumbing issues, and of course the outside facade. So as it relates to the mold remediation, as you can see, the main building is about 90% complete. The first floor is completely done. The second floor and the third floor are about 90% complete. The north tower, all 5 floors are complete. The south tower, all 4 floors are complete. The stockade itself, we have not yet started on. If you don't know what area that is, that's that little small area in the very front of the jail that I don't think that they're using as a place of holding inmates, but it is part of the facility, and we want to make sure it's in good shape. All mold remediation, our goal is to have it all done by September. That's in agreement with our contractor, MLB Bonner Incorporated. The cost to date that we have spent on mold remediation is $75,815. And again, we will continue to do that until all mold has been taken care of. The roof, which is an important factor we've all been discussing for a while, we had Edifice Consulting Incorporated, that's our roof consulting contractor, to survey the jail, and what he identified was 21 separate sections of the roof totaling 49,498 square feet of roof. 8 sections of this roof need to be replaced. 14 sections of the jail roof can be repaired. We have estimated a cost from the roof survey to have all of this done for $750,000. Edifice is currently working on the design specs to send to finance so that we can put it out for advertisement for repair and replacement. I'm sorry, but this schematic doesn't really show you what I was hoping that it would print out, but that's a schematic of the roof, and it will show, and if you got a copy, you can see that the 11 yellow dots are those that need to be repaired. The 8 red dots on your handout are the areas of the roof that need to be replaced. And again, that is being the design schematic for the roof is being done right now. We're hoping to have it to purchasing for advertisement within the next 2 to 3 weeks, hopefully. So plumbing. Ben Franklin is still working with us in handling all of our major pipe leaks that we're having in the jail. Gratefully, the majority of our large leaks have been taken care of. We spent last year approximately $620,000 plus on plumbing repairs. Most of our leaks, we need for you to understand, cannot be repaired during the day. They have to be done at night when the facility is, for a lack of words, shut down. There's not a lot of activity, is when we go in and do a lot of this work. Galvanic corrosion is something that we found as an occurrence going on throughout all of our jail plumbing areas, if you will. And this occurs when 2 non-compatible metals are in contact with each other. And I've got pictures to show you exactly what I'm talking about. We are recommending that the valve replacement for the plumbing be done. And we will start working on that RFP to get that done immediately. There are no plumbing or electrical chases, I like to call them closets or mechanical rooms in the jail of any kind. We need for you to understand that all of our plumbing and electrical is in the walls, which means when we have to repair, we have to take out a wall. And I'll show you some examples of that as well. So for plumbing leaks and getting the valve replaced, we're looking to budget about $788,000 to make sure that is done. This is a picture of what I was talking about when I said galvanic corrosion. If you look to the top of that picture, you'll see clamps, if you will, that are metal, that are the opposite metal of what was put in there. And because of that, along with the electrolytes we have in our water, is what's causing a lot of that corrosion. If you look at the bottom portion of the picture, you'll see what looks like a huge roll of masking tape. That is the appropriate clamp that should have been done from the very beginning. So this is what we're fighting throughout the entire jail. To give you an example of what I mean when I say we have to take out a wall, we literally have to take out a wall. This is an area that had a leak. We had to go behind the toilet and take out that wall in order to find, first and foremost, where the leak was coming from, then determine exactly what needed to be done to get it repaired, to get it back up. Once all that's done, then we have to put the wall back in. We can't leave a jail with a lot of open areas of that nature. We just can't do it. So it takes time when we do find these major leaks, or even a small leak. What could be we think is a small leak turns out to be a major leak. And this is some of the things that we have to contend with in order to do that. So as we're talking with Ryan and our other consultants and the possibility of building a new jail, the first thing we're telling them is that we want a maintenance hallway that we will work from the backside of the jail, if you will, and not from the inside where the inmates are kept as well. It's a safety issue for our people, but it's also easier to work on. As far as the facade is concerned, we are recommending that we remove the facade that is currently pulling away from the building. This will help prevent large chunks of bricks from falling off of the building that can damage the roof below. And our biggest concern is an area that is not necessarily obtainable to the public, but it is directly over the HVAC unit for the jail, and we really need to get that taken care of. What we'd like to see them do is to remove the bricks and weatherproof the exterior underneath the facade. That will help to keep the moisture out of the inside and reduce the environment for the growth of mold. Another safety issue that we're looking at as it pertains to the falling bricks is just to let you know that what has happened is the brick ties that were installed have rusted out, and that's what's causing them to start to pull away from the building. Currently, we've got Ryan's team as well as our team are still working on costing out the best way to handle the facade so that we can go ahead and get that incorporated in the cost of getting the building back where it needs to be. So just to go over the life safety measures that we're talking about and that we're going to actively do as phase one is a mold remediation, again at $75,815. The roof replacement and repair at a total cost of $750,000. The plumbing repair and replacement, that $788,000 is a combination of the $620 and the $168 for the valve replacement. And then, of course, it's facade repair, which is still to be determined. But as soon as we have those figures, we will definitely make sure that you all are aware. So the total estimated expense that we have as of right now in phase one is $1.7 million, a little over that. And we will be continuing to move forward with these areas that we feel definitely need to be done. And with that, I'm open for questions.
That was obviously the most informative presentation we've had, because there's no questions.
Okay, that concludes all of our presentations today.
Thank you, Ms. Short.
Thank you.
All right, well, that wraps it up. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. There's a second. All those in favor say aye. Are there any opposed? All right, we're adjourned.
Thank you.